Picture the Senate House on a spring morning in the year 40. Rome's most powerful men, consuls, praetors, men whose families had ruled for generations, are seated in their assigned places, waiting. The doors open. Their emperor walks in, and he is not alone. Beside him is his horse. Its name is Incitatus. It has a marble stable, a jeweled collar, and, according to the record, a standing invitation to dine with senators who would very much rather not be at that table. Suetonius claims Caligula intended to make the horse a consul of Rome. Historians still argue about whether he meant it, or whether it was theater. But theater for whom? Not for the horse. For the men forced to watch and understand exactly what was being said to them. What was being said was simple. You are replaceable, and I could put an animal in your seat and you could do nothing about it. That was not madness. That was a message. The question is why a Roman emperor needed to send it, and what happened to the men who received it. To understand what Caligula did to the Senate, you have to understand what the Senate still believed itself to be in the year 37. When he took power at 24 years old, Rome had not been a republic in any functional sense for decades. Augustus had ended that in 27 BC, folding the old machinery of elections and debate into a system where one man held the armies, the treasury, and ultimately the final word. But Augustus had been careful. He kept the Senate's rituals intact. The togas, the titles, the votes, because a fiction that everyone agrees to believe is a form of stability. Tiberius, whatever his cruelties, largely maintained that fiction too. Senators still walked into the Curia believing their presence meant something, even as the man on the throne quietly decided everything that mattered. Caligula, born Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus, a nickname from his childhood meaning little boot, inherited an empire built on that unspoken agreement. He was young. He was popular at first, hailed as the son of the beloved General Germanicus, and a relief after Tiberius's paranoid final years on Capri. Cassius Dio and Suetonius both describe an initial honeymoon, games, donatives, public goodwill. Then, within a year, came a severe illness. Historians disagree on its nature, whether physical, psychological, or both. And by every surviving account, the man who recovered was not the man who had fallen sick. What followed was 4 years in which the fiction the Senate depended on was not merely broken but deliberately, publicly shattered, item by item, until the body that had once claimed to embody Rome's collective will was reduced to a room of men performing loyalty to save their own lives. This story is worth telling not because Caligula was uniquely evil among Roman emperors. Later reigns would produce worse body counts. But because his relationship with the Senate exposes exactly how thin the Republican fiction had become, and how a single ruler could choose, almost as a form of entertainment, to make that thinness impossible to ignore. The turn, as far as the sources allow us to date it, begins around the year 38. Caligula's sister and reported favorite, Drusilla, dies. His grief, by Suetonius's account, curdles into something closer to instability. He flees Rome in the night, wanders the countryside, and returns changed. Whatever the medical truth behind this period, what matters for the Senate is what comes next. A ruler increasingly convinced that reverence was owed to him personally, not to the office, and not to the institutions surrounding it. The first structural break comes with his treatment of the treason trials. Under Tiberius, the Maiesta's law, treason against the dignity of Rome, had already become a weapon used to eliminate rivals and silence critics. Caligula did not abolish it. He accelerated it, and he made the Senate itself the instrument of its own intimidation. Cassius Dio records senators being forced to sit in judgment on cases where the accused's real crime was insufficient enthusiasm for the emperor, and where refusal to convict marked a senator as the next target. The chamber that once debated policy became a chamber that rehearsed obedience. Then came the confiscations. Caligula's early extravagance, building projects, spectacles, donatives to the public and the military, emptied a treasury that Tiberius had left unusually full. Suetonius describes what followed as a systematic hunt for wealthy men on invented charges, their estates seized upon conviction or convenient death. Senatorial families, the wealthiest stratum in Rome, were a natural target. To sit in the Senate under Caligula was to sit within reach of your own fortune being read out as evidence against you. It's the personal humiliations, though, that the sources linger on, because they were designed to be witnessed. Suetonius describes Caligula forcing senators, men who had held the consulship, who commanded real family prestige, to run for miles alongside his chariot in formal togas. He reportedly made others wait on him at table like slaves. He is said to have demanded that senators' wives be brought to him at dinners for his inspection and selection, a claim historians treat with some caution, given its resemblance to standard tyrant narrative tropes in Roman biography. But the fact that it was believable, that it fit the pattern the Senate had already lived through, tells you something on its own. Then there is the horse. Incitatus is real. The stable, the purple blankets, the jeweled collar are attested across multiple sources. Whether Caligula seriously intended to make the animal a consul, or whether the claim was a joke that hardened into rumor, or whether, as some modern historians argue, it was a calculated piece of political theater aimed precisely at the Senate's self-image, the effect is the same either way. A body that once claimed to be the collective judgment of Rome's finest men was being told, through spectacle, that its judgment was worth exactly as much as an animal's. The self-deification claims belong in the same category of contested but telling evidence. Suetonius and Dio both report that Caligula began appearing in the dress of various gods, that he had a bridge built connecting his palace to the temple of Jupiter, so he could, in his words, be neighbors with the god, and that he expected proskynesis, the prostration owed to Eastern monarchs, something Roman political culture had specifically defined itself against since the expulsion of the kings 5 centuries earlier. Whether he believed himself divine or was testing exactly how far the Senate's obedience could be pushed is a live question among historians. But the test itself is not in dispute. Every gesture asked the Senate the same thing. Will you perform reverence for something you know is absurd? And by every surviving account, they did. The breaking point, in the narrative sense, if not the strictly chronological one, comes with the Senate's own paralysis. By 40 and into early 41, sources describe a body that had stopped functioning as a deliberative institution in any meaningful way. Senators attended sessions where the outcome was predetermined, voted for honors they privately despised, and watched colleagues disappear on charges everyone understood to be theater. Some historians read the Incitatus story, whatever its literal truth, as the logical endpoint of this process, not an isolated act of madness, but the final, almost sardonic punctuation mark on 4 years spent proving that the Senate's function was ceremonial, and its survival was conditional on convincing performance. What ended it was not reform, it was assassination. In January of 41, a group of conspirators, led by Cassius Chaerea, a Praetorian tribune whom Caligula had reportedly mocked and humiliated repeatedly, according to both Suetonius and Josephus, cornered and killed him in a palace corridor. Notably, this conspiracy originated inside the Praetorian Guard, not the Senate. The men most wronged by Caligula's treatment of their institution did not, in the end, engineer his death. They had been so thoroughly disempowered that the killing blow came from elsewhere. The erasure of this period did not happen through silence. It happened through control of who got to write it down, and when. Caligula's assassination in January 41 was followed almost immediately by the Praetorian Guard installing his uncle Claudius as emperor, bypassing the Senate's brief, chaotic attempt to discuss restoring the Republic outright. Suetonius reports that some senators genuinely debated it in the hours after the killing, a striking admission that the old fiction still had emotional pull even after everything. It went nowhere. The Guard had already made Claudius emperor by the time the debate mattered, and the Senate, true to the pattern of the previous 4 years, ratified a decision it had no real power to prevent. Claudius then had every incentive to bury the specifics. He owed his position to the same imperial system Caligula had exposed as hollow, and a Senate publicly relitigating exactly how compromised it had become served no one on the throne. The historical record we actually have, Suetonius writing roughly 80 years later, Cassius Dio writing more than a century and a half after the events, with the bulk of his relevant books surviving only in later Byzantine summary, was compiled well after anyone with direct political stakes in Caligula's reign was alive. What survived was shaped by that distance, sensational, source-thin in places, and useful to later emperors as a cautionary tale about excess, precisely because it made Caligula's cruelty look like personal madness, rather than a systemic feature of the office. Every emperor after him still occupied. That reframing served everyone who came next. A story about one deranged individual is safer for an institution to tell than a story about what absolute power reliably does to the men who hold it, and to the bodies meant to check them. Here is what the evidence supports without much dispute. Caligula subjected the Senate to 4 years of escalating humiliation, financial predation, and lethal intimidation, and the Senate absorbed nearly all of it without organized resistance. Here is what remains genuinely uncertain. How much of the specific spectacle, the The horse, the temple bridge, the demanded prostrations, was literal truth, exaggeration, or later embellishment by biographers writing for audiences who already wanted a monster. What isn't uncertain is the mechanism. Caligula didn't need to abolish the Senate. He needed the Senate to keep showing up, keep voting, keep performing a republic that no longer existed. Because an institution that discredits itself while still claiming legitimacy is far more useful to a tyrant than one he has to replace. You've likely watched a version of this play out somewhere far smaller than an empire, a boardroom, an office, a family, where the people with formal authority kept their titles and lost everything the titles were supposed to mean, and nobody with the power to stop it ever quite did.